My left elbow joint gave a sharp metallic clink as I slammed the manual lock on the primary tactical console. Perimeter pressure was dropping fast, and 44 elite cadets from the hegemony's finest lineages were screaming through the short-range comms. They ran across the steel deck plate, their heavy boots rattling the structural frame of Outpost 94 Omega. To my right, a Kryn scout's feathers went flat against his skull. To my left, a 3-meter Thulskar trooper filled the narrow airlock gap with a thick defensive musk that made the station filters groan. Then there was Cadet Piper. She sat on a low wooden storage crate in the corner of the command platform. She stood a small 1.5 meters tall, lacking armor plates, venom spikes, or sensory antennae. Her skin was soft and completely unprotected. Currently, she was entirely detached from the tactical display screens that flashed red across our heads. She held a dented steel vacuum thermos covered in peeling red stickers. "Cadet," I roared, my knuckles cracking as I cleared the main power grid. "Secure your respirator. The outer gate is gone." Piper did not reach for her breathing mask. She did not draw her standard plasma sidearm. She simply turned the top of her metal container, her small fingers straining as the rough metal threads bound up. "The lid's cross-threaded, sir," she said softly, her voice carrying a flat, sleepy cadence. "And my soup is getting cold." An obsidian blade tore through the tungsten frame 3 inches from her unprotected shoulder. "Would you have stayed? Or would you have run to the bunkers? Because she did not run. Let me pull the log." 3 hours earlier, the transport ship had dropped the human recruit on the obsidian shelf of Outpost 94 Omega. The air on this tectonic shatter world smelled of sulfur and the sharp burn of filtered iron light. The Academy manual was clear about this sector. The native predators possessed a 91% lethality index against unarmored targets. The rules mandated a heavy infantry squad for any cross-valley crossing. We had come to evaluate the new intake under high-stress parameters, expecting the standard panic responses that define lower-tier species. I checked the local power grid, tracking the perimeter sensors. The 44 cadets had spent the morning lockstep drilling, their movements clean and predictable. Piper had followed at the rear, carrying her heavy steel container in her utility pack. When the larger recruits marked her small stride during the climb, she simply rubbed the back of her neck and blinked at the dark sky. "She will break within the first hour of the air leak drill," Commander Krailv had stated during the morning briefing. He adjusted his heavy sidearm. "Humans have no structural carapace. They are built like prey items." I had agreed with his assessment. It was a matter of professional data. The tactical console suddenly screeched, 3 warning sirens triggering at the same time. The external secondary terminal went entirely dark, its power leads severed by an unseen weight. "Impact in Sector 4, I reported, my fingers flying across the subpanels. 19 targets closing fast. The monitor by the storage crate flickered. I pulled up the human's local bioscanners to check if the toxic gas leak had already stopped her breathing. The scanner screen showed a flat, level line. Her heart rate sat at exactly 72 beats per minute. It was the absolute stillness of a rock. I filed the reading away as terminal prey paralysis. She was simply too small to process her own ending. "The primary pressure valves are frozen," the Kryn scout shrieked from the lower bay. "The automated gates won't slide." They're inside the secondary corridor. The base structure shuddered as something heavy slammed against the interior blast doors. The sound of metal grinding against bone echoed through the floor plates. "All units," I commanded through the primary channel, my arm joints clicking in a rapid, frantic rhythm. "Abandon the platform. Fall back to the secondary bunker now." The 44 elite cadets moved as a single panicked mass. They threw down their diagnostic slates and charged toward the rear blast doors, their heavy claws scratching the iron grates. It was a tactical retreat, a necessary sacrifice of the outer command sector to save the core personnel. But Piper did not run toward the bunker doors. She stood up from her crate, her unarmored boots making a soft click as she walked directly toward the main environmental control line. Her path took her within arm's reach of the leaking airlock seam. The fleeing cadets filled the rear hallway, their enormous bodies jamming the fallback threshold and blocking the route to the station cafeteria. "Cadet Piper," I shouted, drawing my disruptor pistol and firing 2 heart suppression rounds into the dark corridor. "Clear the deck. That is a direct order." She did not turn her head. She did not look at the black claws currently sliding through the broken tungsten frame. She gripped the base of her thermos. "The cafeteria microwave was broken this morning," she muttered, her thumb pressing against the bound cap. "I've been waiting 4 hours for this." The primary line broke completely. The automated gates groaned, leaving a flat 4-meter gap straight into our position as the backup system died. The tactical software on my desk began to dump error codes. Our strategic models are built on energy ranges and ballistic trajectories. They do not contain parameters for high-gravity muscle applying raw mass. Piper took 3 short, heavy steps forward. Her low center of gravity gave her an impossible balance on the vibrating deck. She raised the steel vacuum thermos and slammed its thick base directly into the frozen titanium manual lever. The metal impact split the quiet of the room. The lever did not move. A 3-meter predator lunged through the gap, its jaws clicking at a high frequency that usually stops a recruit's nervous system. Piper did not flinch. Her face remained set in a mask of mild, sleepy irritation. She struck the lever a second time. The titanium housing cracked under the blow, and the backup hydraulic lines let out a loud, pressurized hiss. The heavy steel gate dropped an inch, catching the trailing legs of the swarm. The lead stalker's front blade brushed her shoulder, tearing the fabric of her uniform. Piper stopped. She did not scream. She did not fall back. She turned her head, looked the creature dead in its center eyes, and let out a short sigh. Then she moved. It was not the quick stance of a trained soldier. It was the heavy, terrifying efficiency of an organism that had grown up under a crushing planetary weight. No weapon, no shield, no hesitation. Her unarmored left hand gripped the predator's main sensory horn. With a sharp twist of her wrist, she swung her entire body weight through her heel. The stalker's thick neck vertebrae snapped like dry wood. 2 more entities poured through the closing opening. Piper did not give them an inch of the floor. She swung the dented steel thermos in a short horizontal arc, catching the second creature across its armor plate. The impact was total. The predator did not just drop. It flew sideways into the reinforced bulkhead, its internal fluids splashing across the main view screen. The final stalker hesitated, its front claws freezing in the air. For less than a second, the native world killer looked at the tiny human girl who was currently wiping a smear of black fluid off her red cartoon stickers. "Move," Piper said. Her voice was not loud. It carried the exact tone a farmer uses on a tired beast of burden. The stalker hissed, its jaws opening. Piper took 1 step forward, raised her right boot, and delivered a straight kinetic strike to the center of the creature's chest. The force of the human heel drove the 300-kilogram organism backward through the closing hatch gap. The tungsten plates finally slammed into the lock position with a heavy mechanical thud. The command deck went completely still. The 44 elite cadets who had been wedged into the bunker doorway were frozen in place. The only sound was the steady, rhythmic whir of the station air scrubbers clearing the green haze. Piper stood by the console for a moment. She looked down at her sleeve, where the torn fabric showed her skin was entirely unmarked. Then, with a slow, deliberate twist of her wrist, the stubborn lid of her thermos finally spun free. A thin, pale vapor rose into the cold air, carrying the smell of salt and processed tomatoes. "Still lukewarm," she whispered, looking thoroughly disappointed. "Figures." I stood behind the tactical desk, my crystalline joints completely locked, emitting a steady, high-pitched vibration of structural shock. The central display screen continued to flash its red warning. Target category undefined. 2 cycles later, the Coalition Command silently issued Directive 88 Alpha. The manual on forward outpost defense was entirely purged of its sections regarding human recruits. They were no longer classified as fragile logistics support. The system had rewritten its threat parameters from the baseline up. The battered steel container now rests on the center display, stand in the Academy's historical armory, right next to the plasma sabers of the High Command. It has 3 distinct dents in the base and a peeling sticker of a smiling mouse. Every cadet who passes it does so in total silence, looking at the metal shelf. Never underestimate the species that treats a localized apocalypse as a minor delay to their midday meal.